Hello, my friends. Your boy, Garrett J. White, the founder of Wake Up Warrior and the CEO of DKW Styling.
Finally.
And welcome to the Date Your Wife podcast. I'm here with my co-host, the hostess with the mostest, Danielle.
Garrett.
Danielle.
Can you hear me? Is my mic on?
You're not talking into your mic.
My lip gloss is literally rubbing up the mic.
Okay, you are on the microphone. It may just be in our headset. I think that you're good to go though.
Okay.
Okay, so no, don't just start turning dials. You don't even know. You just reached and started turning dials. You
That's
don't even
how
know.
I figure things out. I just turn dials and magic happens.
I'd like you to turn my dials later tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
I've been waiting.
You've been waiting. It's been days, for God's sakes. All right, so here's the deal. We are in the Date Your Wife podcast. It's not even date night tonight.
I know, it's a Monday. And
It's a Monday.
It's been the Mondayest Monday ever.
It's the Mondayest Monday. Explain what the Mondayest
when,
actually
you think
means.
about a Monday?
Yes.
And you're like, oh, a Monday. Like, that's kind of today was like the Mondayest of Mondays. And you know what's so weird?
Yes.
Everybody must have had a really good, hard weekend because everywhere I went today, I had, like, doctor's appointment, dentist appointment, like, a podcast. Like, I didn't even work at the salon, but I, like, touched base with people in the salon and had appointments. And everywhere I went, it was almost like the universe was it was a weird Monday. Like, my facial place, like, their systems were down. My dentist, like, actually, nothing was down there, but everybody just looked like they were like, "Oh God, it's a Monday."
It seems like there was no weekend, is what it feels like. Well, I worked all weekend, which was not desirable, and that was no fun. But I had to clean up some shit, and we cleaned it up.
There's no time though. Like when you run businesses, like you have your regular Monday through Friday, and then like Saturday comes, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, shit, let's call it a work weekend, and that's just how
and then we
life
call it
goes.
good. Mm-hmm. And then we call it good, and it's over. It's over as we know it.
It's over.
It's the end of the world as we know it.
Like sometimes when you just roll into another week, and you roll into another week, and then you're like, I haven't had a weekend in like 4 weeks. That's when you're like, shit, like you need to like just chill.
Yeah, we have. We're going to go on a New York trip.
I know, that'll be fun.
That's going to be fun to go on a New York trip with you.
I for some reason, just was feeling it. So
you're feeling a New York trip, and so it is done.
A little weekend New York trip.
Little weekend New York trip. So here's the deal. We are today's topic is parenting. We talked about money last time, and then before that, we talked about sex. And today, we're going to talk about babies, and we're going to talk about kids. But I have some specific topics for today, not just pull it out of our ass.
I feel like you always just have pull it out of your ass.
Well, the topics always naturally are sitting there, right, readily available to pull out of my ass.
Do you really have content?
I do have content today. The content today.
You give me so much shit for not being prepared, and
I'm
swear
always prepared.
Every podcast we do, you're like, I'm ready. I'm like, listen, you're a great speaker and a trainer, so you can pull it out of your ass, but are you actually prepared?
If you ask John, the world's greatest surfer right now, if he is ready to go and he's sitting on the beach looking chilled out and you're like, you don't look like you're ready to go. He's like, I'm ready to go. He's like, no, you're ready to go. He's like, dude, I've spent 27 years being ready to go. I'm the John of speaking.
Okay, then
I'm ready to go.
Let's hear your
at any time. All right, so here's the deal. We're going to talk about a situation. So my daughter is a morning psychopath, and my wife's a morning psychopath too. But she's like gotten better over time.
I don't feel like
I, on the other hand, am not a morning psychopath. I actually love the morning. My daughter sets 9 alarms at times, sometimes 5, sometimes 4, but a minimum of 3 or 4 alarms every single day to get up. For some reason, she likes to torture herself. 5:40 alarm goes off, 5:50 alarm goes off, 6 o'clock alarm goes off, 6:10 alarm goes off, 6:20 alarm goes off, and she's still not moving. Then I come in and the yelling begins, and she begins to yell at me for waking her up at 6:20. Then the panic hits if she didn't finish her homework she was supposed to do yesterday, and then it gets even worse, and then she starts storming into your bedroom. Are you aware of this? You've seen this happen?
You know what? Okay, so it's so great that you've taken over. So we have 2 daughters, and our one daughter just started junior high, and she decided to do, which is the craziest thing because she's always like been my hardest kid to get up and moving in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And they wear uniforms, for God's sake. Like, she doesn't even have to pick out her outfit. Like, you throw on the same jumper every day. And she's always been our hard one. And then this year she elected for early.
0 period.
0 period. And I was like, what? Bailey, what were you thinking? Like, you can't even get out. What?
Yeah.
And so then Garrett, I was like, well, how are we going to do this? Because I don't want to do 2 drop-offs in the morning. And he's like, all right, I'll take the older one. I get up at like 3 in the morning. Actually, you don't. You get up at like 4:30 though.
Usually it's 5, but sometimes 4:30. Yes, between 4:30
So I
and 5.
was like, all right, if you get her up, and now she's old enough, like if you just wake her up and tell her to get dressed, and you take her, then you're good. And
that happens only half the time.
I know. You would think that a junior high kid would be able to just get themselves dressed, put a toothbrush in their mouth, and then I take the younger one because she goes to school an hour later.
And she's the easy one. Although recently she's becoming a bit more psycho.
You know what? Ruby is very routine.
She's spicy in the morning.
No, she's very routine. Like down to the point where like if I don't put the exact fruit punch Capri Sun in her water bottle, it can set her off. Like, but I think kids in general like routine. But there's been a few mornings where I couldn't find the water bottle and I couldn't find the Capri Sun, and it was like, Ma, you're the worst mom ever. So Ruby is so easy. If everything happens like clockwork, it's almost like she just goes into autopilot. I'm like, here's your Capri Sun, here's your this, here's your this, check, and she's like, okay.
She's good to go. Now our other daughter is not that way though. She's a little bit crazier, and it's an interesting war for me every single morning because I go and I do my walk and talk. I start waking her up. I walk and talk with myself. I do my core 4 work. I do my stack work, all this stuff Warriors Way style. And as I'm doing all of this, I'm like. I'm in this place where I'm doing all this, and then I'm saying, okay, please, this morning, let's just have it be normal. This morning, she was actually, she was sort of ready, which was very surprising to me, and she was actually telling me to calm down, which was, the first time ever. But nonetheless, here's where this is going to come into play, because I'm going to ask you a question, Danielle. You ready?
I'm ready.
So amidst all of this chaos, though, I get people asking me all the time about parenting. I'm like, I'm not the best parent in the world, but what I am is I'm very committed as a parent, but I'm committed to the right things for me. And this is going to be the conversation that we're going to start into with today is how do you know that what you're teaching your children is, quote unquote, the right thing? And this is the question. And so we're running these routines. People have opinions about our parenting. They think that we're not disciplining our children.
Everybody has an opinion about parenting based on their own guilt of what they feel like they're not doing correct in parenting. So everybody's super judgy about it, but really they're just judging themselves because at some level every parent feels like they fucked up their kid.
And really they all need a judgy shot.
So everybody has such an opinion about parenting. It's wild to me.
Well, we're all parents or we've been parented. So we're both, right? At some level we were parented and then we parent. So I hear people give me opinions about what things should, here's the way you need to do. And there's some guys have reached out to me even who are parenting coaches or psychologists. And they're like, listen, I could really change your life if we talked about this. And I'm like, listen, I didn't reach out to you and ask for help, but I appreciate you reaching out. No, I'm not interested right now. And it's not that it's other people couldn't give it. And my mom sends the Love and Logic book, which I've asked her about. I've asked her, fair enough to her. I've asked her about this. And I have other people. And again, all these people have these opinions about it, particularly parents who are in their 60s have an opinion about how children are being raised today. Yet I can promise you if we had access to cell phones like our children do, nothing would be different. We would be doing the same shit. The difference was we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have pagers. We didn't even hardly have TV. I grew up in school, growing up, I didn't even have a TV most of the time. My parents got rid of a TV for 4 years. We didn't have a TV. We went outside. That's it. So how do you know what you're doing and teaching? And the only thing I've come to is being able to get clear about what are the morals and the values that you want to instill in your children. What are the values and belief systems? Because the values and belief systems are ultimately what are going to guide them. And those are driven by both what you say you're teaching them, but also what you do. So I'm going to ask you a question. If you could only have Bailey and Ruby know one thing true, as a parent, you could only teach them one thing. One thing you could teach them of all the things you could teach them. This is like a would you rather have Lucky Charms the rest of your life or Twinkie, and that my 7-year-old does with us.
Okay.
What would the one thing be that you would want our children to know? Let's say you're dying tomorrow. That's I'm not excited about that idea. Don't die tomorrow. But let's say you're dying tomorrow, and tonight is your chance when we get done with this podcast to teach them the one thing you want them to remember. This would be the one thing they would retain.
Code, just
this is embedded.
Okay, accountability. If you could embed accountability into a kid, I think that would solve.
Okay, so what is
peace,
the belief system accountability? That's a value in them. What is this?
If I take accountability in something that happened in my life, I can actually go in and sort of fix the problem and move on. If I don't take accountability, then I feel like I'm constantly nothing gets solved.
So what would be the principle you would teach them? You're laying there, you're like, oh.
You said I
It's
could
like
just
your last breath, you're like,
You said I could just like DNA embed it. Like
Yeah, I know you
like truth
DNA.
serum.
Oh, good point. I like it. You went straight to the logical dark and black and white on that
Yeah,
one.
you
That's
did.
okay.
That's why I
All right,
asked
so
you.
back it up a little bit from the DNA
I don't
injection.
know how I would say that. So you're saying,
Yes,
like, what
how
would
would
you
you say, like,
communicate
what would
to
the-
your children
yes.
that they would retain forever?
Yes, a something, a belief, something.
That I love them.
Okay, continue more on this.
I think that love can fix a lot of problems as well.
Okay, so like what?
I don't really know. Like, what would you teach him? Like, give me an example of what you teach him, and maybe I'll get sparked of some kind of idea or where you're trying to get me to go with this.
Okay, so here's the piece we're gonna come to. Like, it's gonna be this. It's gonna be like, I love you no matter what.
Okay.
Like, hold on a second. I have one of my guys in my office right now, and he's talking
Pissing you
super
off?
loud. Hold on.
Oh, great. I have a feeling you're telling him to get out of your office.
Your voice is showing up in the background of our podcast. All right. So we've got a lot of teams on our things right now, and everybody's kind of. I'm in our podcast studio, but our companies are all expanding so fast. We literally have people on top of each other all over the place. So the walls are not exactly.
They should be soundproof.
Super-
We're in
they're-
like a foam room.
That's bullshit.
This is just for looks.
It's
like,
complete
I
looks.
think that
It's
Theo-
obviously complete looks because I shouldn't be able to hear, and
Yeah, this
I
does
have to be
nothing.
quiet on the other side of the wall when other people are in here, which kind of defeats the fucking
Yeah,
purpose. But
it does. But it looks cool. It's black and white.
looks cool.
Okay, so what?
All right,
what
so
is your,
I came back and I said, if I could only teach my kids one thing, what would it be? And really, I'd be still instilling in them like an understanding from me as a parent. And so what I started years ago with my daughters was simply this: I love you no matter what. And I actually started that with Bailey when she was super little. I love you no matter what. I love you no matter what. And that was actually born out of, we'd read this story where a little boy and his dad, or a little girl and his dad were reading back and forth, or competing back and forth about who loves who the most. And he's like, I love you more. I love you the most. And she's like, I love you more than the stars. And I love you more than infinity. And I love you more infinity plus one, etc. And then me and Bailey got to this point years ago where I started saying, and she started saying, I love you no matter what.
So yours is the same as mine. You would instill love.
Yes.
Okay.
I love you no matter what. No matter, and like literally that's a phrase, no matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter how you operate. And what's interesting is when we get angry in the morning chaos, I'm reminded constantly, and she's reminded, and I always tell her, and I text her afterwards, even if we've battled, which is, yes,
does
it's
do
hard,
that a
but I
lot.
know you, I love you no matter what.
You guys both have very high-low energy, and what I have to, even like sometimes with both of you, I have to kind of like be like, you're the adult. With you, I don't really say I'm the adult to myself. But because I know, like, both of you typically, like, swing back around. And then you're always like, I love you. And I'm like, oh, okay, I know. But, like, I think that's probably something you've instilled in Bailey. Like, she kind of, like, will come down off of her chaotic morning. And then she'll always say, love you, Mom. And I'm like, whoa. Are you over? Are you mad still? You know what I mean? I'm always like, I'm just like I'm like wondering, like, where are you at when you get to that place
Where I'm super
when your emotions have like climbed down, and then you're like, I love you, like, what makes
No,
you...
it's not even that. Like, I think it's more than just like coming back, because you can come back and say I love you out of guilt and shame, which I did with you forever. Like, I would get angry, we would have a battle.
Why you don't say I love you anymore? You're just
I say I love you.
No, I mean, like, after like an argument.
Oh, never. I will not. No, like, I don't apologize. No, what you're experiencing is I don't say I'm sorry.
Yeah, you don't.
I don't. I used to say I'm sorry all the time.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. But you would never say I'm sorry.
I logically play out the things whenever I get in a fight or in a situation, whether it be my kid or my husband or whatever. I literally, like, after it goes down, I logically look at, it's like I step outside of my body and I'm like, oh, I can see why that triggered that and that triggered that and that triggered that. And I don't come to this place of, oh, I'm sorry. I just come to this place of understanding why it happened. And I just am like, okay, well, that I can see why that, it's like an understanding. I don't even know how to describe it. I'm just like, okay.
It is an understanding. That's exactly what it is.
I'm like, and a lot of times I'm like, I don't want to say sorry if I don't feel sorry. I just have an understanding of why the explosion happened.
Yes.
So anyway.
Well, that's it. That's another piece too. I mean, that changed my world when I always thought you were crazy, you were rude, you were unwilling to say you're sorry. And then I recognized and learned really quickly what you actually meant by it, which is like, listen, I'm accountable. and you're accountable. So I'm not sorry for what happened. I'm not sorry for it all. And I used to get so pissed, but I also realized they use sorry as a way to kind of cop out. And my daughter Bailey will use that too. She's like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, I don't want you to be sorry. I don't need you to be sorry.
I get mad when she says sorry. Like, she's like, sorry. And I'm like, stop telling me sorry.
Well, because she doesn't mean it.
Yeah.
And most people don't mean sorry. But see, that's another thing too. If you come back like on the kid side, like what I'm really looking at here as far as the show topic is, like you can teach your kids all kinds of tactics. Like we just recognized recently that we may not even taught our daughter how to wash pants.
I was so pissed because, like, I come home and well, I wasn't that pissed, but I was just like, oh my God, this is going to be so messy. She was having cupcake wars with her girlfriend, and literally there's, like, flour everywhere and marshmallow puff, and I was just like, oh my God. And I just wanted
Kitchen was a mess.
And I wanted to come home and start cooking dinner, and I can't cook in a messy kitchen, so I was like, and Garrett's like, they told me they promised they'd clean up, and I was like, and then it dawned on me because we kept telling her to clean up, and I'm like, I don't think she knows how to clean up. Like, there were so many spoons and dishes everywhere that you have to rinse and pile and and I was like, literally.
I don't think she knows.
I'd have to show her how to do it because, like, she'll just swirl the brush around and then stick it on the side, and I'll be like, Bailey, there's still chocolate smeared. Like, come on, you saw that. And she's like, no, I got it. Like, I realized, like,
You realize she's 11 years old, and for the first time we're recognizing we may not have taught her how to clean the dishes.
As silly as that sounds, like, I think that's one of those little things that you probably should be like, listen, scrub the sides, do this, take out the silverware, you put it in the dishwasher. Okay, so at least then, and then you could have them do it with you. So at least when they were like, I did, you could be like, I showed you, you know how to do it. You could even do a little video of it. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. But here, again, this comes back to the whole parenting thing. Like, what are the important things, mindset-wise and skill set-wise, that you teach your children? Right? Because there's plenty of people who learned how to clean the dishes who were completely unable to actually produce in life. Like, they were very good at cleaning the dishes. They were very good at doing what mom and dad said. And mom and dad told them, you're going to go to church on Sunday at this time or you're grounded. You're going to be home by this time or you're grounded. You're going to do the dishes. You're going to clean up after your mother. You're going to make your bed. You're going to fluff your pillow. You're going to wash your clothes. All of these things, which I'm not saying are bad at all. That's how I was raised. But inside of it, I have plenty of brothers and sisters of mine that were raised with that too, that are not exactly the most productive people. Right? They're wanting to be productive, but they were raised under the same regime. They were raised under the same discipline, and yet somehow that didn't instill. So I'm convinced as a child that what people actually learn and what kids take into their adult life is driven by the values or the beliefs that their parents instill, both through what they say, but also what they watch their parents do.
Why do you think, like, and I always wonder, because we both have pretty big families. There's 5 kids in both of our families, and we have, like, brothers and sisters on both ends of the spectrum. Like, I always wonder, I'm like, did our parents raise us this way with this set of kids and this way with another set of kids? I think they may have. Or is it like a personality thing? I always wonder that. I'm like, is what you're actually instilling and teaching and showing up for your kids, like, is that something, like, is there this genetic DNA that says no, or like what happens? You know what I mean?
Well, it's an interesting thing because I don't think that there's a box that we're trying to put, just like in education, there's a box that people try to put the kids into. Mm-hmm. You know, here's what a successful kid looks like. It's like trying to say, here's what a successful marriage looks like, or here's what a successful, man of God looks like, or here's what a divinely spiritual woman looks like. And we have these checklists and these boxes, and we say this is what it looks like, and then anything that doesn't fit in there, we consider to be inaccurate or not right. And most parents, I think the greatest suffering they experience is 2 things. One, they're always trying to get it right, so they feel guilty. And the flip side of that, because they're never getting it, quote unquote, right based on the checklist, it always grows and never ends, they flip back into another game, which is they don't focus on the actual belief systems, on doing things like take out the garbage, do this, etc.
They don't focus on them being like a good example or a better person or like that. I think that maybe we don't realize like how much we work on ourselves bleeds into our kids' lives and affects their life. So even if they're doing the checklist, if mom's not happy, if mom's in chaos, if mom's not living on her purpose or whatever it is, then I think ultimately kids, like, maybe they learn less from that, or there's, you know what I mean, like they're doing the checklist, but I don't know, I'm just trying to
take a simple example. Like, growing up in my house, my dad always told us that we had to clean up the dishes after mom cooked. So that was the deal. Like, in my house, that's just what we did. The boys would clean up. We did the dishes, we put stuff away, and I remember every Sunday my mom would make dinner and we did the dishes. This was just what we did. This is why I'm so good at doing the dishes. I'm pretty good at it. And when we first got married, I was like hanging out with your mom in the kitchen and we were doing the dishes.
Night. I thought it was sexy.
That's right, it was. That's beautiful. But you know what's crazy? What I didn't see is I never saw my dad take my mom out. My mom and dad never went
That
on
was
trips,
also
and my
like a
dad
generation
never took my
thing.
mom on
I
dates.
think that was a generation
You think it
thing.
was?
Well, I mean,
My parents never went on dates. My mom and dad, rarely did I see my parents kissing.
My parents went on dates.
And my parents, well, they would go out on but I remember 1 or 2 times. I don't remember it being a consistent thing, and I don't remember my parents saying they loved each other in front of us a ton. My parents were not kissing and making out in front of us. You know, I never saw my dad lift my mom up on the counter and, like, be sensual towards her, like, be like, I want this woman. So, like, and I never saw my parents fight, even though my parents, I came to find out, were fighting all the time behind closed doors.
I saw all these things.
See, I didn't see any of this shit. So, but what I did see was clean up after your mom when she cooks dinner. So I've gotten very good at that, but I was blown away when I got married and horrifically unprepared to be a married man because I never talked with him. My dad had the sex talk with me. My dad said,
I don't think my parents had the sex talk with me.
Nobody
either.
nobody even
they were
says the
like,
word sex
we're
in your
Mormon.
family.
You don't have sex. I was like, okay.
No, they don't even say the word sex.
They
I
don't.
would say the word sex and your whole family's faces would go red.
Yeah.
So my dad's like, listen, it's a little messy. You're going to probably need a towel.
No, he did not tell you that.
Oh, yes, he did. I was like, that is my entire coaching session. I appreciate
mine
it.
Mine probably went down something like this. If you have sex, you will get pregnant. You're 16. Don't get pregnant.
This was my story growing up as a kid, too. I was
want-
terrified of sex growing up because my story was, if you have sex, you will get a girl pregnant for sure first time, and you will fuck up your football career.
You will.
That was exactly my thing. You will go to hell, and you will lose all connection to football
I think mine was just
and
more
skills
like,
and
you will
talents.
go to hell. I was like, well,
No, mine
I
was
don't
the
want
same.
a baby right now, and I don't want to go to hell. So these are two logical. I think because I was raised in an environment that, and I honestly believe it's a generation thing. And my family's not
Do you
like.
think it's because our parents could hide shit from us?
I don't know, because I know your family is very like talky. Like I've gone to dinner with them and I was like, oh, who gets a word in here? Like you guys had a talking stick when you were little. And
We
like
did.
you had to hold up the stick if somebody wanted to say something. Whereas my family, like it was literally like.
You had to hand the talking stick to get people
Yeah.
to say something.
It was like, Danielle, how's your day? I'm like, don't give me the stick.
You're like,
Ooh. Like, yeah. So, but I feel like even in our families that were raised totally different, and your families were still like talky,
Yeah.
there wasn't that same communication. Like talking and communicating is different.
No,
you know?
no. Well, there was talking, but there wasn't. My mom was real with us, like very real.
Like, okay,
I mean, I had the sex talk with
What did
Bailey.
your mom call private parts when you were little?
I penis and vagina.
That's good.
It
I hate
wasn't
when
like,
somebody's like a
you know, the
chony and a
junk. The junk and the John. The
I don't
Gucci
know what
gooch.
my mom called it. I don't even think we didn't even have nicknames.
There are friends of mine whose parents called the penis the junk and the vagina the ugly.
I think people still say junk and ugly.
I'm like,
Bump
listen
and
to
uglies?
it. Yeah, but it's junk and uglies. Like, here's your junk, here's my
Yeah,
ugly.
that's not good.
That's
I don't
horrible.
even
Why not call it a
remember-
penis and vagina? And then people get offended when your kids call it a penis and vagina. Bailey was referencing it in class in school, penis and vagina. She was speaking to
Did
it
she get in
anatomically correctly, and it made a bunch of kids uncomfortable in the class, and they talked to her about it. And then Bailey came to me and was like, "What should I do?" I said, "They hear everything from us. Like, we don't like we'll have full-on battle conversations right in front of our kids."
I don't think I felt like super comfortable growing up, like going and sharing certain like friend situations and stuff with my parents. And so with my daughter, as she's getting older, I try to like. I'm always kind of like prying, but not like in a, not that I'm getting mad at her. Like I'm literally like, what's going on in your life? Like what are the cute boys? What is this? You know, and I'm trying to like, she's pretty. I feel like she'll tell me, but I'm sure
She does.
I'm sure all parents say that, and they're like, yeah, you think you're really close to your kids, so something happens, and then you're like, I thought I knew you. So I feel like I'm still learning in the parenting game, but again, I at least am trying to put in my like. I'm just trying to.
Bailey's very open with us. Ruby's the one that's not going to tell us.
I
anything.
know. I literally look at Ruby.
Ruby's going to
and
look
I'm
at us and be like,
But that's how I.
core messages and beliefs that you're instilling, like brainwashing your children to believe, that are empowering them as people. There was a phrase I think I've shared on this show before, but there was a phrase by a guy named Joel Portman, who's actually part of Wake Up Warrior, and he spoke about this with kids, and he said the following. He said, the way you look at your role as a parent defines the behavior of you as a parent. And he said most parents, most adults look at their children as it is their job to take care of their children. That my job is to take care of this child until they're 18 and they go off in the world.
Even when they're older, that happens.
Well, and it continues, right? But here was what Joel came about, and he was in a situation, a horrible divorce, and then he was in an engaged relationship, and his fiance passed away, and like it's been rough. He went through huge court battles for his kids, like massive. All the psychology I'd worked with, all the therapy we'd gone to with our kids, my ex-wife, and all this. He's like, I finally got to this point where I recognized one thing. And I was like, what was that? And he said, my role as a father is not to take care of my children. My role as a father, and I'll know I've been successful, is when I've been able to teach my children to take care of themselves. When my children are self-reliant and have the courage and capacity to be able to operate daily in their own power, at that point, I will have known I've done my job as a father. He's like, but if I have dependent children who I've taken care of their whole lives, and then they're 30 years old and they're still in my goddamn house, I have failed as a parent. Because my children can't take care of themselves.
So let me ask you a question.
Now, this excludes the situation in some cases where you have a situation with a child who might be mentally retarded or kids who are just in situation. Six kids.
Yeah, so I was second to last.
But your brother died before you were born.
Right. So
he was my age.
I had a brother that was guaranteed.
He was guaranteed the coolest brother.
But, you know,
guaranteed.
maybe you guys were friends.
Your two
in another
brothers,
life,
your
and
two
that's
brothers
why
weren't.
I
No,
liked you.
for
I don't
sure,
know.
he's like my best friend. I guarantee it.
I don't know, but
I'm feeling it.
I'm
seriously feeling it. His name was Trenton.
I felt that before too. I was like,
no,
oh,
I'm
cool.
listen. Feel it right now.
I gotcha.
You're not feeling it.
No, I've always felt that.
I'm
Like,
serious. I feel like I'm bonded to this guy. I don't even know him, but I know him beyond this life.
Well, I might as well just share this portion of the story. So my mom had a son that actually got shot when he was 7 years old in a kid's basement because he was playing with a gun. And way back then, like, they just didn't have the same, I think, safety instantly. So I cannot, after I had kids, like, I could not even imagine. Like, I can't even imagine. But I was not born. My mom actually thought she was done having children. And then, interestingly enough, I don't know how long it had been, but she decided to try again. And she got pregnant with me. And my brother actually, he would be Garrett's age, and he was born, he had a cyst on his eye, and they had to remove it, and he had a little scar. When I was born, I had this exact same cyst. And so for her, she was always like, oh, I knew you were supposed to come down. But anyway.
Here's what I know. Like, that situation for your mother changed her forever. And at the same time, it changed you because it created you to be here.
I don't even know where I was going to go because I got a little emotional.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, you were talking about, like, how we were, like, different ends of the spectrum, and I was just thinking, like, I feel like I've always been the more independent child, and yet being raised, I was always super quiet. Like, even with business and life, like, family members will say all the time, I wouldn't have thought Danielle was going to be the one that was, like,
big success.
The success and doing just like move, because like my whole family stayed like living where they were, and I felt like I was the one that just kind of like was like screw it, and I branched out and I just like lived life for me and whatever it is. But I always felt like I was at the end of the end of all the kids, and I honestly felt like I remember my parents being around, but this sounds bad, Mom and Dad, if you're listening. I remember babysitting her a ton. I lost her quite often because I was 11. I wanted to hang out with friends, and I'd bring her and I'd lose her. So
she'd be 2 and wander off.
And she'd be 2 and wander off. I remember, like, my older brothers and sisters, they'd be like, "Okay, stay home. You're watching Caitlin." But I was the only one that would watch her. I remember, like, changing her diaper. And I'm sure all my brothers and sisters have the same story. But my point is, like, I didn't feel like I was parented a ton. I felt like at the end of 5 kids, and maybe this happens with the end of 5, 6 kids, the parents are just like, you're different than you are with your first and than you are with your 6th. By your 6th kid, you're kind of like, hey, fend for yourself. Like, you know what I mean? But
do you know what's crazy, though, is that your parents didn't parent Damon the same way they parented you.
Right, and that's what I was saying.
Damon was your older brother.
My oldest brother, his name is Damon, I always felt like similar personalities. Like, I'm a little more feisty, but I look at the radical difference of, like, what we've done in life, and I'm like, holy shit, like...
Your grandpa.
I don't remember doing sports or anything. Yeah. My mom's story was always, you know, I'd sign you up for dance or gymnastics, but your friends weren't doing them, so you just quit. And I was like, oh, I just remember, like, trying stuff and quitting, but I never felt like a push to be consistent with anything. And I remember fighting my parents, and they were like, screw it, you don't want to do dance, we're not going to force you to do it. Whereas I bet, like, if it's your first kid, you're like, you will be the all-star ball player. Yeah. You will be the best ballerina there is. And I think just towards the end, they're like, we had 5 kids. Like, you don't want to dance? I'm not going to fight you anymore. And so I felt
this happened to me, though. And, like, the thing was crazy, though, is that my parents didn't push me. My parents pushed me to be responsible. Like, I had to take care of the kids. I was babysitting our brothers and sisters all the time. Like I would watch the kids. Not that my mom wasn't around. My dad was gone a lot. My mom was here, but I would watch the kids all the time. Like,
Sweet.
I was cashing in on that
And
money.
you know, it's interesting too. Like, I remember feeling like my parents, they said when you got into high school, they're like, Danielle, you can either work or you can do sports. And I was like, wait, do I get paid if I do sports? And they're like, no. And I was like, okay, I'm going to work.
Get a job.
Yeah, I'll just work. But I'm just saying, like, how.
So sometimes it's not what the parents are doing, it's
that's
what they
I was
don't do that
wondering.
instills in you.
That's what I was wondering, because I was like, Kate, honestly, I felt like my parents were just like, hey, like what, like way chill with me, like way chill. I can literally remember one time my dad got mad at me, and I was a shit. I like look back and I'm like, oh God, I was a shit. But for the most part, I was a good kid. I didn't do drugs. I didn't drink. I didn't have sex. I was a good kid. I didn't get the best grades. But
Your grades were shit.
my grades were so shit. I barely graduated high school. Like,
you
I didn't get in.
You had to pay.
Trimester, I talked every single one of my teachers into giving me good grades. So, anyways,
and it's a good thing you did.
Anyways,
you passed cosmetology
I
school
knew
like
I was
flying
smart
colors.
though. I just didn't see the purpose of getting like good grades. I just didn't, so I didn't care. But anyway, I don't know why.
All right, so
I don't know
we're
what's
going to wrap this show up, but here's the two principles we're going to end on. Question number one for you is this: what are the actual belief systems that matter that you are instilling in your children? There's a lot of stuff you could instill in them, a lot of behaviors and skill sets, but what are the actual beliefs about themselves and beliefs about the world that you are consciously depositing in them? And then the second piece is, what is the lesson that your children are learning by what you're not doing? Right? Not doing for them or not doing to them, or maybe they're just observing you. And this is a topic you can have.
Because I'll find with our oldest daughter, she'll stress out about stuff, and I feel like I'm not putting any pressure on her. So I would say as a parent, like, I would hate to have my child be older and be like, well, I just did this because I felt so much pressure from you. Like, if they put pressure on themselves, I think that's actually healthier. So I don't know. Like, I notice, like, kids will put, I don't know, I notice Bailey's more responsible when I actually kind of take off the pressure.
And you let her do it for herself.
And she'll be like, Mom, I'm failing this class. I'm like, what happens if you fail that class? Well, then and she'll lay out the consequences, and I'm like, okay. And I'm like, well, then do what you need to do. But I never like put that pressure on her. She'll put the pressure on herself. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but I feel like
it's our strategy.
It's my strategy. And like I said, my kids are still somewhat young, and I feel like I just always approach things. I try to approach things as not human beings. And as hard as that is for a mom to like give birth to her child, they're not really yours to keep forever. And I remember I had a certain situation where Bailey was only like 4, and I was trying to manipulate the situation. I was like, you will do this. And like Monster Mom came out, and I was just like, bah! And I was like, what's wrong with her? What's wrong with her? What's wrong with her? And then I was like, this clear voice came to me, and I was like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, oh shit. I was like, okay. And in that moment, I was like, she's not mine to manipulate and control. I'm there to guide and lead and show up and do the best I can. And I think that every parent goes in with that intent, not that they're going to fuck up their kids. They go in with the intent that they want the best for them. And that's why we end up kind of feeling like we're trying to control the path in the situation. But ultimately, what came down was like, she's not yours. She's not yours. And I was like, she is too mine. And then I was like, no, she's not my little person. Like, I'm here to just be like the best leader and guider that I can for my children. And so that's how I try to approach parenting. And people might have different tactics and this and love and logic and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, ultimately, I'm learning and growing and figuring it out as I go. And I try to just go in with love. Go in with love.
The end.
Okay.
Great end to the show. So here's the thing. We're going to wrap up today's show. We'll be back next week with the topic of communication. But a few things here. We have Be the Man, the book, which thousands and thousands of these copies. There were over 10,000 we'd already had into our student bases across the globe. And then we just took it to the public here on Amazon here a few weeks ago. Almost 600 full-on multi-paragraph Be the Woman, the book coming out here before the beginning of 2019. But for those who are interested in that, I would encourage you to head over to Amazon, check that out. Look up Be the Man by Garrett J. White. You can find the book there. And for the rest of you, well, have a fantastic week. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Oh, I have an announcement.
Oh, you have an announcement.
If you are not listening to the Big Money Stylist podcast, that is my business hairstylist podcast, and I'm bringing back on one of my favorite guests. His name is Garrett White.
Garrett White. Don't know who this guy is. Must be your old boyfriend. But Garrett J. White would like to be on your show.
Yeah, so stay tuned to more of
Big
those shows.
Money Stylist. A little more business talk out to the marketplace.
I like it.
All right, we're out of here, guys. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week on the topic of communication.